I've been using a Kindle e-reader every day for about 15 years now. I absolutely love them. I love the e-ink screens. They're so nice to look at. It's the next best thing to reading a real physical book. The battery life is amazing. They're really simple, they're really easy to use, and they're distraction free. When the Kindle Scribe was announced just before Christmas, I thought that could be the perfect device for me. I've been eyeing up an e-ink notepad for some time, ever since the Remarkable 2 was announced, but I'd never seen a product that felt like it could fit in perfectly for me. Remarkable 2 didn't have a backlight. Things like the Books or the Supernote felt like they were trying to achieve too much and just weren't quite nailing it. But the Kindle line has a proven track record. The Scribe looked like it could be perfect. And then it released, and the reviews, well, they kind of fell flat. Pretty much everyone I saw review it said it's alright, but it doesn't do much, and there are better devices out there. So I held off. I didn't pick one up, and a few months has passed. Then recently, I saw a very good deal for someone selling one secondhand that had barely been touched. I picked it up and I've got it here. I'm so glad I wasn't completely put off by the reviews because I absolutely love this thing. It has been a complete game changer for me, both for productivity and for my mental well-being. Let me tell you why. Before we jump into that, welcome to my channel. Here we talk about reading, writing, being more creative, and the tools you can use to do that. If you're a returning viewer, then thanks for coming back. If you're new, then wipe your feet on the way in. We're trying to keep the place nice. So the Kindle Scribe. First off, this thing is an e-reader. It's part of the main Kindle line of devices, and it gives you that perfect e-reading experience that you get from any other of the mainline Kindle devices. That means it's part of the Kindle ecosystem, so it's perfectly optimized for reading your ebooks. You can access the Kindle store. It's got that really high pixel density, 300 ppi, the highest on the e-ink screen market. You get the same incredible battery life as you do on the other Kindles, and it's also got all the features that you get from the real top of the line devices. So you've got things like the adjustable warm light. So if you're trying to read at night, you can turn down the amount of blue that is in that light and it won't mess with your circadian rhythm. It's got that Kindle front lighting with the lights just under the display, giving you a nice diffused reading experience. But obviously the big selling point with the Scribe as an e-reader is that it's the biggest Kindle on the market. It's like reading a hardback book. You can make the text bigger, you can fit so much more on the screen, and it's a really enjoyable experience. Now that size does come at a slight cost. This thing is quite a lot heavier than any other Kindle. In fact, it weighs just over 400 grams. That's more than twice the weight of the Kindle Oasis. I find it to be a really enjoyable reading experience. Since I picked this up, I haven't touched my Oasis. I just love this amount of real estate when I'm trying to read a book. But there are some other things you should be aware of. Because it's such a big panel that they're now front lighting, you can't really treat it the same as you would any other Kindle e-reader. I like to do a lot of my reading at night. My wife is usually trying to sleep next to me and I'm just reading my book before I go to sleep. When I'm reading with my Oasis or my Paperwhite, I read it in dark mode and I try not to set the light too high so as not to disturb my wife when she's sleeping. Now with the Scribe at a much lower setting, it still does release quite a lot more ambient light to the room. You also lose the magic of the pocketability of the other Kindles. It's not so easy just to throw it in your pocket and leave the house. You need to plan for this. Really, if you want to take it with you, it's going in a backpack. There are some reading experiences that are so much better when you're working with this larger screen. Specifically, things like PDFs, comics, and newspapers. You can actually transfer an ebook PDF to any Kindle device and read natively from your Kindle. But it's not always a very enjoyable experience. It doesn't automatically format it like it would a standard Kindle book. And that can mean the text is often quite small, quite cramped, and not ideal to work with. Well, that completely changes on the Scribe because the bigger screen means it fits on there just perfect and it's like reading a genuine physical book. Newspapers, again, so much better because it's formatted so much more like a genuine newspaper. You can read a newspaper on the smaller Kindles, but you end up flicking so much when you're trying to get past articles that aren't necessarily grabbing your attention. It's so much easier on the Scribe because you can fit so much more on and you can jump between things much quicker. Comics, again, much more enjoyable because you can see the full page panel and actually tell what's going on. Now, I still wouldn't say this is perfect for comics because it's still got that black and white screen. And I really do think colour is pivotal to a good comic experience. That is why colourists are such a respected part of the comics industry. It really does make a difference. But really, if you've used any other Kindle, you're going to get a good idea of what the reading experience is like on here. It's just like you would have on any other device, but it's bigger and clearer. Now the note-taking experience is where this thing really comes alive. That's the special ability of the Kindle Scribe. It comes with this stylus. This is actually the premium pen. That means it's got a little button here on the side that you can use to set shortcuts if you want to maybe use a highlighter, or for sticky notes, you can just press that and then press it onto the screen. It's also got an eraser on the back so you can use it to physically rub out anything that you write or draw. Really effective, really simple. Now I will say, if you're looking at picking one of these up, it's not essential to go for the premium pen. I do think you can get 99% of the experience with just the standard stylus. It was actually the note-taking experience that came under the most criticism when the Kindle Scribe launched. The general feedback was the hardware was there, but the software was kind of lacking. Lots of features that people expected to have at launch just weren't there. I actually think Amazon must have rushed out this device. They wanted to sell it for the Christmas season last year, but the software just wasn't there, because a couple of months later, most of the things people were asking for is now there. It's come through updates. When you want to use this for note-taking, on your home screen you've got a little bar on the bottom. You've got Home, Library, Notebooks, More. If you press over to Notebooks, you've then got a selection of notebooks to work from. Since release, they've added the ability to create subfolders so you can really well organise your notes. I've got my YouTube folders so I can write my scripts for my videos. I wrote this one on here. That wasn't a great idea because I now want to hold it and play with it while I talk you through it. I've also got my sketchbook so I can do a bit of drawing. I've got my miscellaneous for general scribbles. I've got my writing for when it's more lengthy writing. I've got my bullet journals, and I've got my work notepads for anything I'm specifically doing at work. I think the note-taking is amazing on here. It's really smooth, really lag-free, everything feels nice and responsive. There's a choice of different pens and brushes that give you a completely different experience. That's another thing they've added since launch. You've got your pen, you've got your fountain pen, you've got your marker, you've got your pencil. Each one has a choice of 5 different thicknesses. They're pressure sensitive, just a really good experience. When you create a notebook, you get a choice of different templates. You can go for lined, you can go for dotted, graph paper, even music staves. There's plenty of options to work with. I think they're pretty good and they meet most of my requirements. I would like the ability to add my own or to alter the ones that are there. I think the dots could be a bit lighter. I'd like the ability to have some finer lines, and I'd like to make my own for things like bullet journals that I could just use on a recurring basis. The writing feel is really good. It's a textured screen, so it doesn't feel like drawing on something like an iPad. It feels much more like pen and paper. Not quite to the extreme of the Remarkable 2, but very, very close. I also think the drawing experience is pretty good. I've only had a little bit of a play. I've done a couple of quick sketches, and if I'm honest, I'm not a very good artist. That's actually something I plan to change in the future. I do want to try and learn to draw a bit better, but as it stands, I'm not very good. So don't let my capabilities tar the drawing experience of the Kindle Scribe, because I actually think it is pretty good. I think the pressure sensitivity is just enough to get by. I would like the ability to add layers so you could do rough sketches and then remove that layer later. The erasers aren't particularly precise, so when you're trying to remove things like that, it can be challenging. And I've noticed that when you really populate the screen, things do start to get a little bit slower. So when you're pressing the undo after a mistake, it can take a couple of seconds for that to kick in. But you could deal with that, and I think if you could draw well, you could get a very good experience from here. So that's a basic overview of the product and its key features, but I know what you're thinking. Why is that so game-changing? I've not really said much that I couldn't already do with my Kindle Oasis and a cheap notepad I could get from the shop for a couple of quid. Well, this is now what I'm working from almost constantly. When I'm working in my day job, it's open, it's my second brain. Everything I'm thinking throughout the day goes in there. It's got my to-do list, it's got my checklists, and it really powers my day. I don't get distracted when I jump onto it. There's not other apps trying to get my attention. I'm in and I'm writing like it's a physical notepad, but it's digitalized. I work with a lot of PDFs at work, so I just send them over to my Kindle and I can work on that. Now, if you use the Send to Kindle function to get your PDFs on this device, then you can actually mark them up directly on the Kindle. It's really effective, it works very well. It's very organized and it's a really freeing way to write. If I was using a normal notepad like this, I'd have to have bookmarks all over the place so I could jump to the right thing at the right time. And it'd be so much harder to backtrack and get the information that I'm looking for at a later point. But that's still not what really sold me on it. For me, the biggest win is how I'm using it at night. And I use it for a few things. The first thing is reading and note-taking. Now, I really admire people that sit and read through books and annotate them front to back. And you see those really elaborate annotated books that looks like somebody's really considered what they've read. I would never dream of doing that myself to a physical book. I know it's kind of odd, but books feel kind of sacred to me, and I just wouldn't write all over them. I love sharing books with other people, and I just wouldn't want my notes on there. I'd be kind of embarrassed about it. As I'm writing the notes, I'd be thinking, is that astute enough? Is that too astute? Is it all kind of embarrassing? I don't know, I just wouldn't really enjoy it, but I really love it on the Kindle Scribe. As you're reading a book, you can press the button for a sticky note, and then you can place a sticky note anywhere on the screen and just write with a pen. It's a really freeing way of reading a book, and if you do it as you're working through a book, you get so much more out of it. It really feels like you've considered what's happening, and it's a very present way of reading a book. As I've covered lots of books in this channel, and I intend to cover many more, it's good to have those notes to hand. It makes it a much more simple process. And when you finish reading a book, so much more of it is stuck in your mind when you've taken the time to write about it as you've gone through. It does slow you down a little bit, but not enough that would ever put me off. And the other way I use it at night is for general nighttime writing. Now, I've struggled with sleep for many years, and the main reason that I lose sleep is because my brain just can't shut off. I think of something that I need to do the next day, and I just can't stop thinking about it. I can sit there for hours tossing and turning because of one stupid small thought running through my brain. Usually when I get up in the morning, it doesn't matter at all, and I can actually box it off in seconds, but I just couldn't get my brain to shut down at night. Now, the ability to have a Kindle Scribe next to me when I'm sleeping, and I can open it at any point and just jump into a notepad without being fully awoken by that kind of blue light you get from a phone or from turning on a proper light, is amazing. What I do is I just jump into my bullet journal. I start a quick to-do list. Anything that is really bugging me, I just jot down to do for the morning. Once I've got it on that to-do list, it's actioned. I feel like I'm going to do it tomorrow and my brain can just shut down. It's so effective. If you have the same experience at night, then I genuinely recommend you try it. And on top of all of that, because the writing is so enjoyable with the Kindle Scribe, I'm just so much more likely to actually do it. That means projects that I've been sitting on for ages thinking one day I'll get round to, have started to come to fruition just because it's so enjoyable to write and I want to write something. So with all of that said, how does it compare to the other devices on the market? The Remarkable 2 is probably the most talked about e-note, and I think the Kindle Scribe now has it beat. I think the backlight is an essential feature, and the fact that Remarkable 2 doesn't have one at all is a deal breaker for me, and I couldn't pick one up. There definitely is some software features that are missing from Remarkable 2 on the Scribe, but we've seen that first update come already and so much has been added, and Amazon have promised updates right throughout the year. I think the Books line are very impressive, but they do try to take on a bit too much, and I don't feel like they quite master any of it. They're also quite a lot more expensive, and for me the Kindle Scribe achieves most of the things that I would want it to achieve. You've got the Super Note. Now, I actually haven't been able to try that. I don't know anyone that's got one. I think though it is very similar to Books, so I would expect a similar kind of comparison. And the last one that kind of stands out is the Kobo Ellipser. They've just released another version. It's very, very similar to that of the Kindle Scribe. From early comparisons online, I would say that the Kindle Scribe wins on a few things and the Kobo Ellipser wins on a few things. If you're already entrenched in one ecosystem, either Kindle or Kobo, then probably stick with the model that is in that ecosystem. There's a few features that I would like to see added through software updates throughout the year. So Amazon, if you're watching, please do add these in. I'd like a zoom feature, particularly for when you're drawing, just the ability to pinch in and pinch out so you can really get some detail on a drawing. I think that's quite a basic feature. You'd expect it on most digital drawing apps. I think it's kind of essential. Let's get that built in. I'd like a lasso tool so you can draw around something, reposition it, resize it. Again, I think that's kind of an essential tool and I would like to see it added in. Give us the ability to import or adjust the templates, or at least increase the number that are available. Another feature that I see on things like the iPad, when you're trying to draw a straight line, you can hold your stylus in point after drawing a line kind of roughly, and then it will snap straight. I think that is a really helpful thing. I think it can be kind of annoying at times, so I would like the ability to turn that on and off for when it suits the situation. I'd like to see tap to undo. That's something that's been recently added to the Remarkables. If you tap with 2 fingers, it will undo. If you tap with 3 fingers, it will redo. Again, it's something that's on the iPad, it's really effective, and I think you get used to using it really quickly. I'd like layers for the notebooks so you can add to something non-destructively. And lastly, I think this one's been mentioned by lots of people and it really is a key feature that we would like to have on the Scribe. That's the ability to write loosely on any Kindle book. At the moment, the only way you can note take when you're reading through a book is to use the sticky note feature, but it would be nice to, be able to circle something that's written, be able to roughly underline something or just write something in the margins. Anyway, none of those features not being on the Scribe has been enough to stop me using it. I absolutely love this thing. If you'd like to try your hand at digitizing your notes but you don't have a Kindle Scribe, then check out my video on the perfect iPad bullet journal. If you've enjoyed this video, then a like would be appreciated and I would love to see you on the next one. Thank you very much. Goodbye.